There's a lot of people on my side of the political spectrum who say there is no value in calling out hypocrisy. It's not really going to be productive for us to talk about how the left doesn't have any standards except for double standards. While you're pointing out hypocrisy, the left is taking power and using the power. So I hope you feel good about yourselves saying, wow, look at what the left is doing. They're not living up to their principles. However, there are instances where you just have to point out the absurdity in our society because comedy can undermine authoritarian regimes. It's why it's one of the things that is targeted by the left and targeted by authoritarian regimes historically. And this story of Quintez Brown, a Black Lives Matter activist, an anti-gun activist that was praised by Obama, by Joy Reid, appeared on her show.
And joining me now is Quintez Brown, president of the Black Student Union at DuPont Manual.
Attempting to assassinate a political candidate in what was a failed mass shooting is so ridiculous and absurd, we have to talk about it. Now, of course, this video has a sponsor. We're going to go to the ad read, but I'm going to catch you up on this crazy story on the other side of the ad. Our health is incredibly important, and everybody knows that it's important. This is one of the reasons why it's so difficult to find good health information, good supplements, and what you should actually be doing. I know you guys have heard that eggs are bad, and then they're good again, and then they're bad again, and who knows where it's at right now, and don't even get me started on bread. This is one of the reasons why I like this product, C60 Evo. It's made from olive oil right here in the United States of America because there's claims about what it does. I've taken it and I felt the effects of what it does. And what those things are better energy in the morning. 1 teaspoon in the morning daily is what I'm on. And you don't get disrupted during your sleep like you do when you drink a bunch of coffee in order to get that burst of energy. And the great thing about this, the great thing about the products that are associated with me is if you go to 360evo.com/AJW, then you can get 10% off a single order or 20% off a subscription order. Try it out. You'll like it. Made in America. Don't feel bad about buying it. C60evo.com. So the video I shot directly before this, I legitimately shut off the camera and then wanted to shoot this video back to back so I'd have the other one fresh in mind, was about Canada becoming an authoritarian hellscape. And one of the things I emphasized in the nation of Canada is that Justin Trudeau's administration is essentially doing a crackdown by freezing the bank accounts of people who hold the wrong political views because allegedly them donating to the protests is them supporting criminality, aka terrorism, political violence, and that's a huge problem. And the media has aided and abetted this process. After it was leaked the donors of Give, Send, Go that actually contributed to this organization, to the trucker convoy, people in the media have not spent any time trying to figure out who hacked the website, which by the way is a crime, why they did that, why they're targeting their political opponents through hacks, how the Trudeau administration is using the stolen data in order to use government power to target these people. But instead, they've actually participated in this targeting of the donors, contacting people who have donated as little as 10, 15, 20 bucks to these organizations in order to shame them, dox them, and make sure people who have the wrong political beliefs never feel safe ever participating in the political process ever again, and they don't ever defy the Trudeau regime. That's what's going on with our mainstream media. And they're all doing this because the protesters are allegedly anti-Semitic, they're allegedly racist, they're allegedly bad people, and of course, they're committing terrorism, acts of political violence that we don't see because they're just those terrible people. So the Quintez Brown story, a lot of people are covering it because it's an anti-gun guy. A lot of people are covering it because it's a Black Lives Matter guy going off on an attempted assassination of a political candidate. And that's basically where people extend it. But it actually goes further than that, because an examination of this guy's past social media posts actually shows that he's embracing beliefs that are very similar to those of the Black Hebrew Israelites. This Pan-African identity, essentially radicalizing himself over time, and part of this radicalization involved him posting a bunch of anti-Semitic things. Now, we heard a lot, and honestly way too much, and intentionally way too much, about the one Nazi flag that appeared during the course of the trucker convoy protest, and I talked about how Trevor Noah's assertion that the appearance of a Nazi flag makes this a Nazi rally.
The swastika flag seen at protests denounced by 2 conservative MPs who had openly supported the convoy.
I mean, people, let's admit it, once a Nazi flag shows up at a rally, the whole thing has just turned into a Nazi rally.
It's just him repeating the propaganda of the Trudeau administration. And honestly, if the Nazi flag was brought out not by a left-wing activist, not by a Trudeau ally, it was likely brought out to compare Justin Trudeau to Nazis, because what he is doing, cracking down on dissent, is more similar than any of the beliefs held by these people who want freedom. But again, if you want to learn more about that, I have an entire video on that. You can check that out. If you want to learn more about Trudeau taking power in an authoritarian manner in the nation of Canada, I have a video that I just shot about that. What I want to focus on is the implication of anti-Semitism, is the implication of racism, because without any shadow of a doubt, Quintez Brown meets all of these standards of racism, anti-Semitism, and increasing anti-Semitism leading up to his attempted assassination of a Jewish candidate for office. And the fact that he didn't ultimately end up killing anybody has no bearing on the fact that he intended to do so, took actions to do so, and was firing on somebody in their own office, an office with other people, because he had willful disregard for human life. And because of the absolute severity of Brown's crime, because of this attempted murder that could easily be described as an attempted and failed terrorist plot, Brown was arrested, charged with attempted murder, and put up on a $100,000 bond. But you see, unlike you or I, who would actually struggle to pay a $100,000 bond, Quintez Brown is actually in a great position of privilege. He has friends in all the right places. He was one of 22 people who were chosen to meet Barack Obama in this young black leaders, youth leaders of the future, nonsensical event, and here he is pictured with the former president. Now, I understand a lot of people don't like pointing out hypocrisy. I get that. I understand that. But let's just remember something, that Kyle Rittenhouse showing up to a Trump rally, not being invited by President Trump, just attending a Trump rally, likely attending it just because his family were supporters of Trump, was considered to somehow undermine his clear and obvious caught on video instance of self-defense, because him just being near the proximity of President Donald Trump made him a radical, and therefore made him create this Mac Jedi mental judo move in order to lure people to attack him just so he could murder him. Well, this guy, clearly and obviously based on that standard, is obviously being reported as an agent of Barack Obama who went to take out a candidate on behalf of Barack Obama, right? No, of course not. And to be fair, that would be ridiculous for the media to report, but I'm just pointing out how they totally would do it in terms of Donald Trump. However, it actually gets even crazier, because despite the fact that this guy is friends connected with Barack Obama, connected with the Democratic Party, has appeared on Joy Reid, he also has one more key relationship that we need to take note of. And that is, he's actually friends with the head of the charity that put up the $100,000 bond so he could get out of jail on the attempted murder charges. Now, this is Black Lives Matter, or an offshoot of Black Lives Matter in Louisville. A lot of people donated money based on the myth, the misperceptions, and the outright lies related to the Breonna Taylor case. If you were one of those people, or just put yourself in the shoes of one of those people who felt awful about what happened to Breonna Taylor, do you think that you wanted $100,000 of your money, or would you have wanted $100,000 of your money going to the friend of the leader of the charity after he attempted an assassination of a political candidate, possibly due to anti-Semitic motives? Can you imagine? Again, I know people are going to say hypocrisy, calling it out, has no value. If this was a right-wing person that was connected to a right-wing charity who attempted to assassinate a Democratic political candidate and was posting anti-Semitic posts, and that Democratic political candidate happened to be a Jewish person. Come on. This is absurd in every possible way. They're freezing the accounts. They won't even tell you if they're going to freeze without a court order the accounts of people who support the Canadian trucker convoy in the nation of Canada.
As of today, a bank or other financial service provider will be able to immediately freeze or suspend an account without a court order. In doing so, they will be protected against civil liability for actions taken in good faith.
Media is cheering on the nation of Canada, making crowdfunding sites register with their intelligence agencies so that the Trudeau administration can monitor political dissent on these platforms. And this guy is taking money from his friend that runs an organization that was raising money off of Breonna Taylor in order to bail him out of jail after an anti-Semitic assassination attempt of a Democratic candidate, and it's totally fine. It's not even notable. In fact, I don't know if you guys know this. I'm not sure if you guys are aware of this, but this act of political violence, this guy trying to assassinate a Democratic political candidate based on his radical left-wing views that he's expressed time and time again, his black nationalist views, are all based around the idea that the right wing is incredibly violent in this nation. I kid you not, there is actually an article that blames this specific attack on the climate put forward by the right wing that promotes political violence. Now, this article is insane in multiple different ways. First and foremost, we knew at this point he was a Black Lives Matter activist. This was written when he was bailed out, not written when he was first arrested. But the Vegas Sun decided that the most important thing for you to know about this was right-wing bad. The alleged shooter, a 21-year-old political activist, was arrested near the scene and later charged with attempted murder along with 4 counts of wanton endangerment. While there's been no indication that the activist had any ties to right-wing organizations, the shooting comes amid a rise in threats against politicians, fueled by increasingly violent rhetoric coming from extremist Republicans. This guy who's talking to Joy Reid about getting rid of Mitch McConnell and all the Republicans that don't pass his stupid gun agenda, this Black Lives Matter activist who posts all left-wing stuff all the time, support of communists everywhere and anywhere, says he wants a scientific unification under communism of Africa, was being fueled by increasingly violent rhetoric coming from extremist Republicans. Now, they finally edited this article because they got so much backlash, but the edit that they made actually doesn't make it better, and I would argue in certain ways it makes it worse. While it's been reported that the activist was involved in the Black Lives Matter and gun safety movements, and there has been no indication yet that he has ties to any right-wing organizations, the shooting comes amid a rise in threats against politicians fueled by increasingly violent rhetoric from Republicans. So everything that was wrong about this sentence before is still present in this edit of the article. However, now we have an outright lie because we know for a fact that this guy was involved in the Black Lives Matter movement. We know for a fact that he was involved in this quote-unquote gun safety movement. He even said common sense gun control.
Well, I want you to know that, we are here and we want common sense gun reform. And if you're not going to give us that, then we're going to get everyone out here to vote and we're going to vote you out of office. So if you want to keep your job, then, give us not what we want, but what we need, what humans need. We need common sense gun reform. Get rid of assault rifles. Come on,
So there's a few things about this segment that are actually quite interesting beyond what you see in the superficial. First and foremost, this interview is being done by Joy Reid of Quintez Brown, the shooter in this instance, post the Parkland shooting at the March for Our Lives. The Parkland shooting took place on February 14th, Valentine's Day. Quintez Brown's assassination attempt on this mayoral candidate also took place on February 14th. So this guy first rose to prominence for attending a march, and he chose the anniversary of the event that sparked the march in order to attempt his own shooting. It's pretty crazy when you think about it. Yet the Sun says, oh no, whatever, I don't even want to talk about it. It was reported that maybe he was involved in some left-wing organizations, but don't worry about it. We don't know if he has ties to any right-wing organizations. And by the way, did I ever mention the violent rhetoric from the extremist Republicans? Violent rhetoric, extremist Republicans, pay no attention to what he actually believed and where he actually was on the political spectrum. This left-wing guy who would qualify as a left-wing terrorist for what he tried to do, who was bailed out by a left-wing organization that he's deeply connected with, this guy who's met the president, who's been praised by him, this guy who's been on Joy Reid's program, was actually the product of right-wing climate of violence in this nation. You cannot make this stuff up. Now, to be clear, the article from The Sun, which by the way piggybacks on an article from the New York Times, because of course, coincidentally, when a Black Lives Matter terrorist targets somebody due to his anti-Semitic black nationalist views, they had to write up about how Republicans are increasing the amount of political violence in this nation against candidates. Just coincidentally, let me throw that out there and pretend that I'm not doing a thing to cover up something else. I'm not pointing to a different problem because I don't want to acknowledge the first problem, because that's who the New York Times Times is, this article from The Sun came out after. It is saying that this left-wing activist's violence is based on a climate of extremism from Republicans. The quotes in the article are about how Republicans need to call out people like Donald Trump who gin up violent rhetoric against their political opponents. This video is not just about hypocrisy. The hypocrisy of the left is obvious, it's omnipresent, we see it every day of our lives. This video is about how these people will just lie directly to your face, and they will blame you for literally everything wrong in the country, because their basic premise that they operate under is right-wing bad. Anything and everything should be attributed to the right wing, and anytime there's left-wing violence, anytime there's left-wing terror, anytime there's left-wing rioting, that is all based on the climate that was created by the right wing, because fundamentally we're working back from the conclusion that right-wing bad, orange man bad, you're bad. If you don't align with the popular progressive positions, you're essentially a terrorist, as you've been declared in the nation of Canada. So get used to the fact that you're the enemy no matter what. And even if it requires them to support and downplay Black Lives Matter potentially committing fraud because of the relationship between the charity founder and the criminal in this instance, to cover up for the assassination attempt of a left-wing political candidate, that doesn't matter, because overall, the direct conclusion that we need to draw from every instance of every news story of every day in this nation is right-wing bad. But hey, those are just my thoughts. Let me know your thoughts down in the comments below. If you like this video, you can show me by leaving a like. You can subscribe. You know, social media linked in the description. Support links also there. This has been me talking about a Black Lives Matter activist attempting an assassination, and yet it's still being the right wing's fault. Till next time.